Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Root Rot by Saskia Nislow, narrated by Scappatura. The lake house was not on a lake at all, but a river. On the weekend we came to stay, the heavy spring rains brought it spilling into the overgrown backyard, where it pooled and settled, blanketing the bluegrass and clover in its mirror-black skin. At night, when we looked out our windows, the stars shone below us like seeds. We were the children and grandchildren, cousins, though some of us were really uncles or nieces or something once removed. We called each other cousins, 9 altogether, 3 threes, a magic number, someone told us. We don't remember who. The house belonged to our grandfather. He had built it himself. This is what the adults said whenever we expressed amazement at the fact that it was possible to have more than one house. Something about the way they said it made us sorry we'd asked. He'd put his blood, sweat, and tears into it, they told us. It was for us. For the family, they said. The way they described it made it sound like our grandfather had built himself a larger body, one big enough for all of us to fit into. According to the adults, everyone used to come out to the lake house once or twice a year, sometimes staying for only a few days, and sometimes entire summers. They would drive boats out to where the actual lake was, only a mile or so down the road, and kayak around in the algae blooms. They would meet in the largest kitchen to cook enormous meals that they ate in the backyard, as the bats skimmed insects out of the sky overhead. That was a long time ago, though. The oldest was the only one of us who had ever been, and that was when he was still just a baby. For over a decade, the lake house stood empty. Why did we come that year? None of us knew, not really. The adults said it was to spend time together as a family again, like we used to. The boy twin said he heard that it was a sort of memorial to honor our late grandmother. The girl twin disagreed. He didn't know anything about it, she claimed. He was just making it up to have something to say. The liar said that our grandfather wanted to bring everyone together to decide who the house would go to when he died. None of us believed her. The one who runs away was picked up by an uncle from the train station a couple days early. The twins and the oldest, who lived closest, were driven up together with the rest of their families in a big van. The baby, the Crybaby, and the secret keeper, all sisters, flew. The one with the beautiful voice did too, but from somewhere else, and the liar took the bus up with her mother. The others were already there. As we traveled through the sparsely populated town where the house lived, our parents pointed out the parts that belonged to us in one way or another. It was hard to parse one patch of tree-studded land from the other. It all seemed to belong together, but some of it had been sectioned off with invisible glass walls and marked hours. What for? We asked. The answers that came were vague, containing deceptively simple words whose hidden meanings only glinted at us. Asset, invest, appreciate, develop. We nodded like we understood and turned our attention to the green on green on green streaking across the car windows. And then, suddenly, the bright white paint of the lake house. Our legs stiff from traveling. Those of us who got there early ran through the surrounding woods as everyone else trickled in, pine needles burrowing into our shoes and roots stubbing against our toes. By the time the one with the beautiful voice arrived with his father, around dusk, dinner getting cold in the big kitchen while we waited, we had gone so far in that we couldn't see the white of the house winking through the trees anymore. Behind the trees now stood more trees, like a mirror trick. Running felt like falling. We were falling in. The ground beneath us was covered up, hidden by the leaves and roots and needles and mushrooms and vines. The baby, who we had placed there, dug into the debris. Has she found it? We asked. Did she find the ground? Leaves crushed in her fat little hand. She stomped on a cluster of mushrooms and they exploded in a puff of smoke. The mushrooms grew strangely there. Not in little crops or in lines, but in circles. We jumped in and out of them like they were hopscotch squares. We embellished their boundaries with pebbles and pine cones. We used them as safety when we play tag. The baby's face and all our hands were covered in their dust. Spores, the secret keeper called it. We tried to get it off, scrubbing our palms with dead leaves and using spit to rub at the baby's cheeks. We chased each other off into the trees, shrieking with laughter. Our voices circled each other higher and higher until they transformed into those of screaming animals. Running behind the trees, we looked like animals too. "Watch out for hunters," called the girl twin. "We look like deer." And so we stopped and brushed ourselves off and returned to the yard, and the others joined us. It was a big house, bigger than any of us could have imagined. More like a museum of houses, a collection of different versions of the same room. There was the largest kitchen, all shiny white porcelain and cool steel. But there was also a green kitchen and a brick kitchen and a tiny, cramped yellow kitchen, and, in the basement, a freezer that looked like a massive coffin and a jolly little refrigerator that the adults said was just for drinks. There was a living room and a dining room and a sitting room and a day room and a TV room and a playroom and a library, and they were all different somehow, even though it seemed to us that they were all used for the same thing, which was sitting around. There were at least 7 bathrooms, though there could have been more. The best one had a window in the ceiling right over the tub, and if we ran the water really, really hot, the steam filling the room pressed against the glass above us, and it was like a cloud we could reach up and touch. It would have been impossible to count all the bedrooms, but we didn't need to. The adults, citing a need to decompress and have some grown-up time, assigned us to a single section of the house, where we would be supervised by our young aunt. The children's wing, they called it, half ironically. Like a cherub, some of us thought. Like a hospital, thought others. The children's wing was on the east side of the house, which of course meant nothing to us. To reach it, we either walked through a hallway on the second floor or entered through the back door, the one facing the river, and climbed up through a narrow brick stairwell. Our territory comprised the playroom, the TV room, the yellow kitchen, 3 bathrooms, and 6 bedrooms. Our parents were worried about dividing the rooms fairly, expecting that none of us would want to double up. The twins' father loudly advocated that his children be allowed their own rooms. "They always have to share," he barked, jabbing his finger into the air in front of our young aunt's face. The baby's mother, who fretted over her daughters, cajoled the secret keeper to room with her sisters. "Wouldn't it be a nice thing to do?" she wheedled. "Then your cousins can have their own rooms, and you can keep an eye on your sisters, and everyone will be so grateful to you." The baby's mother assumed, as we did, that the twins would share. They needn't have worried. We didn't know if it was the whole house or just the children's wing. But there was an unsettled feeling in the air inside that made us not want to be alone. Tired of our own siblings, we instead partnered up by age and affinity. The oldest, and the one whom runs away quickly, made themselves at home in the largest bedroom, the one the rest of us assumed would be taken by our young aunt. They stretched their long legs out on top of the king-sized bed, their sneakers leaving streaks of forest floor on the linen duvet, their duffel bags and backpacks tossed carelessly over the antique vanity and carved oak armchair. The second largest room, the only one with its own bathroom, was claimed by the secret keeper and the girl twin. The liar tried to stay with them too, pointing out that she could fit easily on the love seat by the window. But of course, this was deemed inappropriate. To stave off an argument, the secret keeper took the baby and stated decisively that the room was full. Of the remaining rooms, 2 had double twin beds and 2 had singles. Our young aunt, who seemed slightly disoriented, most likely expecting to have been in one of the larger rooms with the baby, took one of the singles. After some deliberation and a little whining, the liar and the boy twin took one double, and the crybaby and the one with the beautiful voice took the other. The remaining room stood empty, its door hanging open to the hallway, the mirror on the wall opposite reflecting us back at ourselves as we passed. We tried not to look. Dinner that night was a trial. Because of the late arrivals, the food sat out on the counter too long, turned lukewarm, started to congeal. None of us were used to eating in a big formal dining room. We squirmed uncomfortably in our 2 hard chairs and kicked each other under the table. Our grandfather set an extra place at the table, filling the plate there with steamed asparagus, mashed potatoes, roast chicken, and even a warm roll that he carefully buttered himself. We assumed this was for our late grandmother, who passed the year before, which lent credence to the boy twins' theory about why we had come. It was right across from the Crybaby's seat, and she tried not to imagine her grandmother sitting across from her, pursing her burgundy lips disapprovingly at her meal. To distract herself, the Crybaby tried to engage the liar in a game of playing pretend, even graciously offering that they could both be fairies or even princesses. But the liar, who considered herself too old for that kind of baby game, had something else in mind. "I have a better idea," she whispered to her little cousin. "We can play Don't Look." The object of the liar's game was simple. Don't look at our late grandmother's chair. If you do, she'll look back at you. The boy twin who overheard the liar explaining the rules decided to join in. Our late grandmother had not liked him much when she was alive. He was that type of boy that most adults saw as a pest. His interests too childish, his movements too aggressive, his voice too loud, too whiny. The idea of seeing her ghost scared him, and he liked to be scared. The Crybaby did not like to be scared, but saw no way to get out of playing the game. Now that the liar had planted the idea in her head, she couldn't bring herself to look at the chair across from her. She tried to tell herself that the liar was just being silly, that if she were to look across the table, the only thing she would see would be an empty chair and a place setting with the food untouched. When she imagined this, however, the empty space between the chair and table seemed to radiate a certain menace, like it hated her, like it wanted to scare her. She began to cry. The secret keeper, who was talking to the girl twin about private, older girl things down on the other side of the table, heard this, and, rolling her eyes, called her sister over to come sit with her. As the Crybaby walked the short distance between their two seats, she tried not to look at our late grandmother's chair, while also trying not to intentionally not look. She cried harder. The liar and the boy twin continued their game. Without the Crybaby, it was a little less fun for the liar, since all she had to do now was wait for the boy twin to look. She had no interest in looking. The game, after all, was her own invention. She watched her cousin carefully for signs of cracking. He picked at his asparagus, feigning concentration, and then turned to stick his tongue out at her. He was holding out for longer than she thought he would. She scanned the table to see if any of the rest of us looked bored enough to join. The secret keeper and the girl twin were comforting the Crybaby, who was still crying. The oldest and the one who runs away were doing something disgusting with the mashed potatoes that she normally might have been interested in if not for her game. The baby, perched on our grandfather's lap, was gnawing enthusiastically on pieces of shredded chicken, and the one with the beautiful voice seemed to be in solemn conversation with one of the old cousins. Only one child sat alone. The liar knew them. They were familiar to her. But it was a familiarity like when she accidentally caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror at night. Somehow both too distant and too intimate. Nameless. The child's head was bowed at an odd angle, tense, like something in their lap had startled them, and their hands were up by their face. Covering their mouth, perhaps? There was no mouth to be seen, and she couldn't catch their eyes, though she could tell, somehow, that they were open. With a jolt, she realized that she was looking at our late grandmother's seat. She quickly counted the other children sitting around the table and then yanked on the boy twin's sleeve. "Look," she hissed. She could feel the child across the table watching her, but didn't look at it. The boy twin shrugged her off. "I'm not looking." He giggled a little frantically. "You can't trick me that easily." She tugged harder, and then, when he still didn't look up, grabbed his head in her hands and forced him to face it. He squeezed his eyes shut tight, and she tried to force them open with her fingers before hearing her name being barked from somewhere down the table. When she looked up, most of the adults were staring at her, and her mother was glowering. She let go of the boy twin. "We're just playing," he whined, though he wasn't even the one in trouble. She muttered out an apology before someone forced her to, and the adults all went back to their conversations. The boy twin turned to her. "What's your problem?" he asked, though he wasn't really mad, only curious. Look, she insisted again, not knowing what else to say. There's someone sitting in Grandma's chair. The boy twin knew he was probably being tricked, but looked anyway. He liked the way the liar's words sent a thrill up the back of his neck. There was no one sitting there, though it looked, just for a split second, like there might have been. Not a person, though. The body didn't fit in the seat the right way. It was more like when his pointy old greyhound would jump up at the dinner table back at home, and his mother would exclaim, "Boots thinks he's people." It was gone before his eyes even registered it. A sort of mirage, perhaps, of the thing he thought might scare him. "There's no one there," he muttered. He had hoped to build up suspense to the point that even an empty chair might be a little thrilling. But now the game was ruined. Once we were finished eating, the one with the beautiful voice volunteered to help clear the table. The rest of us resented this, as it meant we would have to pitch in as well or risk getting into trouble with our parents for embarrassing them. We scrambled for the easiest jobs, collecting napkins, gathering up the clean silverware. The one who runs away, who tended to do things slowly, was stuck with clearing the dirty dishes to the kitchen, where our grandfather sat, overseeing it all. But he didn't seem to mind. Unlike the others, he wasn't bothered by mess. He had just returned with the last remaining dishes when he thought to ask our grandfather what he should do with the food on our late grandmother's plate. It felt wrong somehow just to throw it away. "Do whatever you want with it," grumbled our grandfather from his perch on one of the old leather bar stools. A little scandalized, we turned back to the one who runs away. As he reached toward the plate, we all noticed it at the same time. The food there had been eaten. Immediately, our parents and aunts and uncles and even the old cousins descended upon us as one hissing, hollering mouth. "Who did it?" they cried. "Which one of you was it? Come clean now and it'll be better for you later." "So disrespectful. Raised you better than this." "Is this how we taught you to behave?" "Who was it? You can tell me. I won't say it was you that told." None of us would cop to it. We didn't do it, we told them. It wasn't us. The boy twin offered the baffling suggestion that maybe a dog ate it, which no one paid much mind to as there weren't any dogs in the house. No one else had any ideas. The adults deliberated for a little while, all except our grandfather, who chatted with the one who runs away about tax laws for rental properties, a topic none of the rest of us had any interest in, and decided that our young aunt was to take us back to the children's wing early. No dessert and no after-dinner time to play. Straight to bed. Only the boy twin and the crybaby protested. The one who runs away shrugged, slipped a funny kind of bracelet made of knotted string our grandfather had handed him onto his wrist, and strode off to the children's wing with the oldest trailing behind him. The one with the beautiful voice got kisses from the grown-ups, who assured him they knew it wasn't him, and then left with the secret keeper, the girl twin, and the baby. Everyone expected the liar to throw a fit or try to talk her way out of it. But she was quiet, distracted, gone before any of us even noticed. Long after we were sent to bed, the girl twin woke abruptly from a half-sleeping nightmare. Half-sleeping because it had been somewhere between a dream and a hallucination. She was asleep, maybe, but her sleeping mind was in the same room she was in, seeing the same things she might have seen if she were sure her eyes had been open. Or at least, that's how it seemed to her at the time. In the dream room, the floor around her bed was crawling. Or not crawling, exactly. More of a rippling, shimmying motion. She couldn't tell if it was something on the floor or the floor itself, or both. But the creeping thing pulled itself off the floor pulled away from itself, and shuffled into bed with her. Tentatively, though, like a pet banned from sitting on the furniture. When it did this, she had, in her dream, tried to kick it off. She kicked, and watched some sort of shade, like a dampness, slip down from the sheets and absorb back into the floor. But she couldn't feel anything against her feet except a thin, warm, skin-like membrane sticking to her toes, like bits of tissue paper. She woke up then, or at least she opened her eyes. She could hear sounds from the secret keeper's bed. Sounds like breathing, maybe. but not quite right somehow. The whistling sound it made reminded her of when gusts of wind blew in through the window. Open space to open space, nothing filling up. For the briefest moment, she entertained the twilight, thought the shadow that had been on her bed had crawled under her cousin's covers and hid there. But that was silly. Still, she didn't look over at the other bed as she crept to the crib where the baby slept, picked up the warm little bundle of blankets, and held it close. That same night, while some of us dreamed, others stayed wide awake. The oldest and the one who runs away sprawled across their room, resentful at being sent to bed like much younger children, grumbling and eating their way through at least a quarter of the candy the one who runs away had stashed in his bag, dropping bits of chocolate onto the new white sheets, where they melted and glued themselves to the fibers. They waited until the baby stopped fussing, and the liar and the boy twin stopped giggling, and our young aunt stopped pacing the hallways and hissing, "Lights out!" Finally, when the children's wing was quiet and still, they cautiously tiptoed through the hallway toward the kitchen. As they passed the room at the end of the hall, they were startled by the door cracking open and the secret keeper's face poking out. "What are you two doing?" she whispered. "Where are you going?" The one who runs away beckoned for her to join, and as she slipped out of her room and closed the door softly behind her, she saw that he was fiddling with the strange tangled bracelet our grandfather had given him at dinner. And so, while the rest slept, the three oldest of us snuck into the kitchen and, after grabbing 2 bottles of amber liquid one of the adults must have carelessly left in the cupboards and shoving them under our shirts, continued into the old stairwell where we crept down to the back door and then out into the waterlogged backyard, dragging the hems of our pajamas through the wet grass on our way to the forest. The click of the door woke the one with the beautiful voice. Sleepily, he looked around the room for the sound source before he caught sight of us out the window. The oldest, running ahead, only the glimpse of his bare foot visible before it slipped away into the tree line. The secret keeper and the one who runs away talking together a few yards behind and crawling behind them. Well, not crawling exactly. It was a different sort of movement, but the one with the beautiful voice couldn't think of the word for it at the moment. He had thought, at first, that it was the baby. It had looked just like her, so much so that he had started from his bed, ready to chase after her. But when he looked again, he realized his mistake. It wasn't the baby at all, and perhaps it wasn't even crawling behind the rest of us, but in the opposite direction, back toward the house. Some kind of animal, maybe, though it didn't look like any animal he'd ever seen before. He stared harder at it, thinking, until he hit a realization and his short-lived fear dissipated. It was a blanket of some sort, or a scarf blowing this way or that in the wind. It only looked like it was moving on its own. It only looked like something's skin. The next morning we were woken up by a loud banging. Tripping over our discarded outside clothes and fumbling with the door handles, we peered blearily into the hallway, where we were greeted by the sight of the liar pounding on the door to our young aunt's room. When our young aunt finally opened it, squinting in her glasses, the liar started yelling, though not at her, more like she had already been yelling about something, and our young aunt just happened to cross her path. "If my dad were here, he would kick their asses!" she screamed, and we didn't know who she was talking about, but we all knew that wasn't true. No one liked the liar's father, not even her mother. He opted out of family gatherings on her mother's side whenever possible, preferring to stay home and watch hockey on the couch instead of on his phone in the bathroom like he usually did. The rest of us heard our own parents talking about him in low tones sometimes, gossiping about how he made the liar and her mother party to his own family's every whim, and debating the benefits and drawbacks of staying together for the children. To us, it didn't seem like the liar cared much whether or not her parents stayed married. But maybe she was different at home. We all were, in our own ways. "Language," a young aunt chastised absently. The liar continued as if no one had interrupted. We gathered in the hallway to listen, All of us except for the oldest and the baby, who we assumed were still sleeping. From what the rest of us could tell, she was claiming that the oldest and the one who runs away had tormented her and the boy twin all night. "Didn't any of you hear?" she wailed. "You must have heard them through your windows, too." "Hear what?" asked our young aunt. "You didn't hear them calling for us? You didn't hear the crying?" The rest of us shook our heads. The boy twin standing next to the liar began to redden. "You kept calling and calling," the liar insisted, directing her words now to the one who runs away, who looked at her curiously, almost sympathetically. "And tapping on the window. I don't even know how you were doing that, because every time we tried to look out, you would hide. You must have used a long stick, or maybe you were throwing rocks. It went on for so long." "How did you know it was them?" the girl twin asked her brother. "How do you know it was them when you say they hid every time you tried to see who it was?" The boy twin, redder still, shrugged, and then said defiantly, "Who else could it have been? And we obviously know what their voices sound like. Plus, we did catch him once." He pointed to the oldest, who had just emerged from his room, rubbing his eyes blearily, the wrinkled imprint of the sheet still pink on his cheeks. "What are you two idiots even talking about?" he yawned. "What is it you thought you saw? It definitely wasn't me. It was probably a squirrel or something." He and the one who runs away laughed at this, though the one who runs away's laugh didn't have much humor in it. The liar looked at the boy twin. We didn't know how to prove what we had seen. Didn't know how to explain that, in the cavernous dark of the empty backyard at night, after we heard our names called to us in those same two voices, in the same way we had heard them while playing together only hours before, there had been a flapping sound, like a lone pair of wings, or perhaps just a single wing, beating the air by itself. And after this strange sound, we had seen something stranger still, fluttering by the submerged trunk of a skeletal birch, something we both recognized and did not. We stared at the oldest's face, but couldn't quite match it to what we had seen there, and our certainty waned. "I'm pretty sure we saw him, or at least we saw something," the boy twin muttered. The girl twin smirked at the secret keeper, who mouthed "boys" at her and rolled her eyes. The girl twin's conspiratorial smile wavered slightly. "I don't know what you guys are so smug about," the liar cried, shriller by the second, her own face beginning to glow. "When you two were supposed to be watching your sister, and they had her out there with them last night using her for a stupid prank, we could hear her crying and crying the whole time, and you didn't hear her at all? Not very "Shut up," one of us said. "Stop lying. You sound stupid." The secret keeper rubbed her face in an exaggerated adult gesture of weariness, and then stopped and seemed to listen for something. "Where is the baby?" she asked suddenly. "She's usually up by now. Did you see her in our room this morning?" "I don't know why I didn't check." This was directed to the girl twin, who shook her head. "I thought she was with you," the girl twin said. "Didn't you put her to bed last night? I thought she stayed with us. Did someone else come get her?" We all looked at our young aunt, who gazed placidly back at us. "I haven't seen her," she said, not as worried, we thought, as she should have been. "I assumed one of you was with her. I haven't seen her since last night." This kicked off another flurry of activity. Forgetting our momentary squabble, and ignoring the angry red splotches on the liar's cheeks, we burst into the secret keeper's room. The girl twin, who was trying to remember if they had indeed had the baby, checked the empty crib, and then the floor near the hidden side of the bed. She couldn't quite recall what they had done the previous night for some reason. She could remember playing with the baby right after dinner, and then could remember our young aunt taking her to the large bathroom to give her a bath and get her ready for bed. But everything after that was strangely jumbled. She wasn't sure if the baby had stayed with our young aunt or had gone back to the room with them, where a crib was set up for her. In the room, the baby was nowhere to be found. She wasn't in our young aunt's room either, or the main bathroom.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?